But Epstein Island was all about blackmailing people so that you could then take people who were blackmailed and put them into positions of power, and then you could control them from that place. All right, continuing on through the stack of stuff, I've got an article by Benedict Cross of Eyes Everywhere entitled "Trump is Defeating the Cabal's Surveillance and Control Mechanism." I've got a video to go along with this. Let's take a listen.
Former FBI Director James Comey interviewed by the Secret Service on Friday as part of an investigation by the Department of Homeland Security and Secret Service. The investigation sparked after Comey shared a since-deleted post on Instagram earlier this week. This post right here. It shows a picture of seashells spelling out 8647 and saying, "Cool shell formation on my beach walk." Donald Trump is the 47th president. Trump says Comey, who Trump fired from the FBI 8 years ago, knows what 86 means.
He knew exactly what that meant. A child knows what that meant. If you're the FBI director and you don't know what that meant assassination. And it says it loud and clear. Now, he wasn't very competent, but he was competent enough to know what that meant, and he did it for a reason.
Let's bring in News Nation.
All right, Maria Bartiromo has something to say about this as well. Let's hear what she had to say.
We begin this Sunday morning with increasing calls to investigate and possibly arrest Jim Comey after the former FBI director posted an image on social media suggesting a call to assassinate President Trump. Comey was interviewed by the Secret Service on Friday and is now facing a string of federal probes after he posted an image of a beach scene with seashells arranged in the numbers 8647, writing this: "Cool shell formation on my beach walk." The number 86 typically refers to elimination, and President Trump is, of course, the 47th president. After much public outcry on social media, Comey took down the post, claiming he was not aware that 86 refers to eliminating something, and that he opposes violence. There have already been 2 assassination attempts on President Trump's life, which are still under investigation by the FBI. After the incident, new FBI Director Kash Patel told me he is in the middle of an active investigation into this matter.
All right, you can go online and watch that whole video yourself. I want to get to this article because I think what just happened in the news is tying together some of the stuff that we've been talking about over the last couple of weeks regarding the New World Order and their structure and how they operate. I refer to it as the octopus cabal. They've got so many tentacles. And I said last week that when I first began getting red-pilled and I tried to talk to people about it, I found it very difficult because I could see so many different components to this New World Order, to this prison planet, to this coming one world government that the Bible actually prophesies of. But I didn't know how to tie it all together. I saw that there was, as I said last week, fluoride in the water. I saw that there was, the education system was being filled with ideologies and demonic realities. I saw the endless wars from the military-industrial complex. You see the Hegelian dialect that goes on where you have these governments that are two-party systems that are really one-party systems, pretending to be two-party systems. You would see all of the corporations that are putting demonic symbols in their logos. If you go and do any studying on corporate logos, it's not an accident that so many corporations have demonic signs that are part of their logo. If you even look at the dollar bill on American money, it is chocked full of all sorts of satanic imagery. And so I could see this going on. I could see that at Super Bowl halftime shows, there was, checkered board on the ground, which is clearly a pagan ritual of dark to light. You would see all this going on, but you're trying to talk to people about it. You're trying to tell them, yeah, that third tower fell on 9/11 and nothing ever touched it. And you can start to sound like a crazy person. And so what I've tried to do over the years is learn how to talk about this, learn how to throw powder on the invisible octopus that is trying to strangle mankind in the earth. And so I think this event in the news is powerful because Trump is defeating the cabal's surveillance and control mechanism. That's the name of the article. And the FBI acts like the henchman, the security guard for the cabal, one of the many security guards, at least here in America. And so when you think that the FBI or the CIA is designed to protect Americans, it may be doing that sometimes, and the good guys within the FBI and CIA may have that as their heart. But at the very top levels, the Cabal uses, the New World Order uses the FBI and the CIA to cover up their own crimes. And I think it's everybody's hope who's part of the MAGA movement that the Trump operation would help clean this up. We all know that the Bible says that when the righteous rule, the people rejoice. And we're looking for forms of justice to be restored here in America. So let me get to this article because I think this will help us talk a little bit about it. And by the way, if you find yourself overwhelmed, because I often, even 15, 20 years into researching this stuff, find myself overwhelmed at times with what I'm finding. If you find yourself overwhelmed, don't worry. You don't have to explain everything to everybody. If you can just talk a little bit about different topics, you really are planting a seed. One thing I always share with the youth at the monastery is that I looked up an apple seed. How long does it take for an apple seed to go into the ground and then grow and become a tree that actually bears edible fruit? So I did a quick Google search, and the particular apple tree that it showed said it takes 7 years from the time that the seed goes in until it forms a tree where you can actually eat an apple off of that tree. So don't get discouraged. Just continue to sow those seeds and understand that in time, if you don't give up, it'll bear fruit. And the more seed you sow, the more often you get a chance to talk about these subjects, the better that we will all get at knowing how to communicate. So let's get to this article. The Cabal is real, and it's not just operating in the shadows. It's using the most powerful institutions in America to enforce its agenda. What just happened with James Comey and the so-called 8647 debacle is another major puzzle piece showing us how deep the tentacles go. Let me walk you through it. Who is James Comey? James Comey, the former FBI director, is not just a random bureaucrat. He's a high-level gatekeeper. This is very important. Listen to this. Listen closely. James Comey, the former FBI director, is not some random bureaucrat. He's a high-level gatekeeper in what we've come to call the deep state, a term that doesn't mean conspiracy theory anymore. It means the permanent, unelected infrastructure that pulls strings behind the scenes, no matter who wins the elections. And he cites Chumley 2020. A high-level gatekeeper. See, it took me a while to figure out back in the day when I first started researching this stuff that the FBI, the CIA, really is being used to cover up and protect crimes at the highest level above them. A lot of these folks, whether it's Clapper, Brennan, Comey, they've got puppeteers, people pulling their strings. This is what the Epstein Island situation was all about. I'm not saying any of those three guys went there. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I don't know. But Epstein Island was all about blackmailing people so that you could then take people who were blackmailed and put them into positions of power, and then you could control them from that place. I've said this before in a video. I think that the main players of the Cabal are not the people that we see. They're not really the Klaus Schwabs or even the Rothschilds anymore. I think that there are some folks behind the scenes that we've never even heard of that are pulling a lot of the strings. And that's why I say that I hope that the Trump operation is able to bring about some level of justice, restore some forms of righteousness in America. But we have to understand that the enemy, Satan, has been building his infrastructure, his military for thousands of years. And the mechanisms that he has in place are vast and wide. And ultimately, Satan will bring about a one world government. He will bring about a one world ruler. There will be an antichrist. And I have prayed before. I said, Lord, we know in the Bible it says that ultimately there will be one world government. There will be, one world ruler, and people will be forced to receive a mark on their hand or their forehead without which you can't buy or sell. So I said, Lord, why would I pray against that? You've already declared it. You've already prophesied it in your word. And the Lord said to me very clearly, he said, that time is not now. There is a reprieve. And for those of you who've listened to other videos on the channel, there is a revival that America is in right now that launched in 2006. It actually began, ironically, with the fall of a pastor in Colorado who was also the leader of 30 million Christians who tried to influence politics. And when this man fell, it was the beginning of a changing of the guard of the leadership of the kingdom here in America. And so I believe that we're in this 40-year revival based on the words that I received from this angel. And I believe it's part of the reprieve the Lord's talking about. So he said, pray against all of those mechanisms that are trying to bring about that one world government right now, because there is a reprieve, and billions of souls are going to be saved as a result of this reprieve. We're still going to have opportunity to share the gospel. We're going to have, I saw this angel appeared to me in 2006, right after this pastor fell. And he showed me a vision. In fact, it got released through a website called the Elijah List. And it's called Prophecy for America. The angel said, you could look it up. And the angel basically spoke with a vision, because God, when he speaks, he's like many waters. God shows you a vision because a picture says 1,000 words. The angel spoke and I saw a vision. And I saw revival happening in America where there were cities that if you just walked into that city, you would get healed. In fact, I was listening to this interesting YouTube video called My Lunch Break. If you go to My Lunch Break YouTube channel, very powerful videos. And he put one out, I think it was yesterday, that talked about these cities where he believed they actually had buildings that were created to have frequencies that when you walked in, you just got healed. And you have to go watch this. If you go check out My Lunch Break, very powerful. But I saw this angel show me cities where if you just got there, you would get healed. I saw America being completely debt-free, out of debt, which at the time when I saw this vision, we were being told that it would be impossible for America to get out of debt. So you can watch some of our past videos from last week, and I talk about that. But let me continue here. I digress. James Comey, the former FBI director, not some random bureaucrat, high-level gatekeeper. He's the one who launched the phony Russia investigation against Trump. That's according to Horowitz 2019. He's the one who helped orchestrate the takedown of General Flynn. And under his watch, Peter Strzok and others engineered false evidence to push the narrative that Trump was a foreign asset, while real corruption and treason were being ignored or covered up. So it's important that we don't skip by this. It says under his watch, Peter Strzok. Now, do you remember Peter Strzok was the FBI agent who was texting with Lisa Page, a girl who he was in a relationship with, even though he was married. And she was saying things like, are we going to be able to stop Trump? And Peter Strzok was saying, don't worry, we will stop him. And then he ends up being the guy who was pushing the Russia stuff. He was one of the lead investigators. And that same Peter Strzok is now a regular contributor on the fake news media. Very powerful article. It goes on to say, all of this was coordinated with the media. The leaks, the framing, the headlines, it wasn't just political warfare, it was cabal warfare. So you've got these different arms of this octopus, the media being one of them, and then the law enforcement officers. And they don't have to control all of them, they just have to control the key ones. So Trump is defeating the octopus cabal surveillance and control tentacle. And that's what our hope is. I'm encouraged. I was telling a good friend of mine last night, until I see people arrested, until it actually happens, I'm hopeful that we will see everything cleaned up. But until it happens, it hasn't happened yet. So if you have ever been involved in sales, you know until the sale is final, it's just not final. So we're hoping that this Trump operation is going to be able to clean things up. The article goes on, in the cabal octopus model, the FBI and CIA are part of the surveillance state tentacle. Their job is to spy, blackmail, control narratives, and neutralize threats to the system. They're not working for the American people. They're not even just protecting the establishment. They're protecting something deeper, something darker. They serve the cabal. The CIA handles foreign psyops and regime change. The FBI handles the domestic side, investigations, legal harassment, blackmail, and keeping dissidents in line. Together, they form a covert enforcement wing of the cabal. I think that's super important to understand, that ultimately the people who are being protected are the ones who are sacrificing to their god Satan. The ones who are literally pushing endless war because they see the 3,000 soldiers a week being killed in Ukraine and Russia as offerings to their god Satan. You know, the thing that's being protected is the currency. You know, God's kingdom has a currency. Mercy, love, joy are currency in heaven. In Satan's kingdom, murder, death, destruction, corruption, these are currencies. And so a lot of the wars that we see are really offerings to their God. They're not going to ever come out and say this. You're never going to hear these guys come out and confess to every, dastardly deed that they've done. You have to just be able to have eyes to recognize this, that you've got an octopus cabal that's operating across the earth, and their leader is Satan ultimately. And we know that Satan is kill, steal, and destroy. So a lot of these things that they do, starting wars, even the days they start wars on, go back and look at the video that, the whole world is their theater. They actually feel like if they start wars on certain days, it opens up portals that allow powers and principalities of hell to manifest on earth. The same way that Jesus told us that we should pray that, the Lord's Prayer, where it says, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." So as believers, we're supposed to manifest the realities of heaven into the earth realm. Same thing for the enemy. He's wanting to release hell on earth. And so this cabal is being protected by these deep staters, not just from money corruption, but from the fact that they're trying to usher in demonic powers and principalities to create a dystopia, a hell on earth.